All right, so I know I'm a bit later than I wanted to be talking about this, but I want to take some time to really just solidify my thoughts on the whole like Castorice Global Passive and the whole drama that has, kind of been taking over the community as of late, especially with the 3.2 live stream. So today I want to give my overall thoughts on firstly the Global Passive, but then also my current opinion of Honkai Star Rail and whether or not I'm going to be playing and how I'm going to be handling the Castorice stuff going forward, because I do have some thoughts on it. And this is going to be a bit more of a like yap kind of video. So if you want to chat me in the background while you're playing your favorite game, I know a lot of you who may not be playing Star Rail as much are picking up some new gacha games or just picking up new games in general. So y'all can definitely just have me on the background because it is going to be more of like a yap video than anything else. So I want to start out here with giving a sort of TLDR of my opinion here, because I know as soon as I start saying stuff, people are going to go into the comments. I've watched some other videos of creators talking about the game and like talking about this situation in general. So I know people are going to be going to the comments as soon as they hear even one little bit of an opinion. So the short version of my stance is I 100% acknowledge the precedent that the Global Passive sets, and I think that it is a very bad one. But I'm not going to rush to doom posting like a lot of people are, and I am going to continue playing Star Rail for now. But there are things that I'll talk about in a bit here that would absolutely make me quit if they actually do happen, which they are all things that I think are possible to happen given either Hoyo's track record or just the way things are in Honkai Star Rail just getting worse over time. So to go into a bit of an explanation here, I know you've probably seen several videos talking about the Global Passive and the precedent that it sets, and an argument I've seen getting thrown around by people who are defending it or being more optimistic towards the Global Passive, they've been saying that Castorice's Revive passive is not that crazy when it comes to the effect of it, which, while I do agree on that front, I think it's kind of foolish to not think about the bigger picture and think about the precedent it sets. And now if this ends up being like a one-off thing, then sure, that's fine. But I've also, heard people having dreams about other, passives being a thing for future characters. And if that's the case, and if these passives end up being more impactful and having better effects, like something like defense ignore or, extra crit rate, crit damage, stuff like that, then that's going to make the game way more predatory, which gacha games are already predatory as is, just the system itself. And if you're going to have something that's going to make the game even more unhealthy, that's just not a good thing for players to, have. Now, you can, I guess you can counter how predatory a game is by just not, by not pulling or just being, responsible with your money. But at the same time, if a game keeps going on this path and becoming more predatory, then you're going to get to a point where you can't progress without pulling. And that's like the absolute latest point that people will draw the line. And if a game gets to that point, I think it's pretty much done. So that precedent is definitely scary for sure. But at least to me, just with casters right now, that's not enough of a reason to say like this one thing is going to make me quit the game. And I've seen a lot of people, you've probably seen a lot of, content creators as well, making videos saying they're quitting HSR, they're not covering it anymore, and all this stuff. But if we're going to be 100% honest here, I think that these people were just looking for a big reason to quit the game. Because let's be real, ever since 2.6, Honkai Star Rail has been on a downward slope in terms of how good it's been. There's been the issues of storytelling, the issues of power creep, HP inflation. There's been things that have been wrong with the game. I made a video a few weeks ago talking about some of these things that are wrong and expressing my opinions on those things. And while there are issues with the game, I'm not just going to jump on the bandwagon of, oh, this one thing that people have been talking about that can be really bad is going to happen. So I'm just going to quit right now before it's even releasing game, before even any of this. People who are like jumping onto, the bandwagon of quitting HSR, I think they've already had issues with the game and they were just looking for a scapegoat to say, I'm quitting because of this. Like, is that going to be true for everyone? Maybe not. But a lot of the time with a lot of the discourse I've seen, that's what it feels like. And that's not something that I personally agree with. You know, you can hate me if you want, but that's just how I feel about the whole situation. So I am going to still be playing Star Rail for the time being. But I do also want to acknowledge that I do understand that because of the precedent and also the previous scars that people may have, like longer term Hoyo players may have from previous Star Rail decisions, and if they were previous Genshin players as well, because I know several people have dropped Genshin because of the direction that that game has gone in. Although the HSR problems and Genshin problems are different problems, but still, you know, same company causing problems and just a worse experience overall for their games. I can, you know, understand that, but for me personally, I'm choosing to not doom post and just be like, oh, global passives are happening, I'm quitting right now. And I'm just gonna see how it goes, test the waters. But there are 3 things that would make me quit Honkai Star Rail or would get me like extremely close. Because I'm a player, as you may have, you know, guessed from my type of content, I do enjoy like the quote-unquote challenging modes. I'm not going to say that they are challenging, because let's be real, the strategy of Honkai Star Rail has not been that important for so long now. So I wouldn't really call it a challenging game in the slightest. But I am a player that does like, you know, those modes like Apocalyptic Shadow, Memory of Chaos, and that is my main thing. Like the story's cool too, but if I had to choose like one thing to be like my main focus, it would probably be like challenging myself within the confines of the game, regardless of if the game is like actually super challenging or if it's just like, you know, not super crazy, but there is content that is more challenging than other content comparatively in that game. So for the 3 things that would make me quit or would get me extremely close, the first one is if the, you know, the dangers of the precedent of global passives actually come to light. Meaning that if we get future global passives that have more impactful effects, which I've heard that people have had dreams of global passives for future characters and them having more, you know, impactful effects. So if that is the case, and if that does make it to live servers, that's going to be a really bad thing. Like I said, it's just going to be extremely predatory and unhealthy. It's going to make characters almost like, depending on how good these passives are, into like must-pull characters regardless of if you're going to use them on your account or not, because they'll buff the overall state of your account regardless of what characters you're using. And I think that kind of thing, the more characters they introduce with impactful global passives, the more it's going to permanently damage the game, and it's just going to make the game not fun to play, especially if these global passives are effective in the endgame content, which is probably where I get a good amount of my enjoyment of the game. So that is the first reason. The next one that would make me quit the game is, which I don't know if a lot of people have the same sort of viewpoint, but if they fumble the old character buffs, if they mess those up, that's going to be a pretty big thing that's going to make me want to quit the game. Because I think that buffing older characters, it's an amazing opportunity to begin dealing with the issues of power creep that they've made. Because while power creep is going to exist in gacha games regardless of what you do, I think that buffing the older characters is going to make things a bit more manageable and just have a better experience for the players, while you can still have, you know, a small level of power creep, but not enough to make people think that characters are unrunnable after like 2 or 3 patches, because there are people who would think that about Star Rail characters. And I think that messing up these old character buffs would be straight up just embarrassing for 2 reasons. The first one being that it's a highly requested, you know, thing from a lot of people, because a lot of people have these older characters, you know, like Blade's getting buffed, Jing Liu's getting buffed, Kafka's getting buffed, and Silverwolf. Those are characters that people really enjoy and haven't really been able to use that effectively unless you've like hyper invested, or if you're a whale and you have multiple, you know, like Eidolons and stuff like that. These are characters that people are, you know, wanting to use, but are just not effective enough in a lot of the endgame content. So messing that up is going to make people want to play your game even less, because they're not able to use these characters that they enjoy. But the other reason that I think it would be straight up just embarrassing for them to mess this up is because there's plenty of other gacha games that have systems to buff older characters that are effective. A game I've talked about here and there on the channel is Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, which is a game that is much older than Honkai Star Rail, and they have systems to buff older characters that have not only, made the characters usable, but some of these characters that are buffed through their Extreme Z Awakening, or now Super Extreme Z Awakening because of how old the game is, because of those systems, some of those characters end up becoming like top 5, top 10 in the game just from them buffing them, which is an overall better player experience, because since people are going to have those characters already, they're going to be able to still enjoy the end game content while there is still a level of progression that would allow people to see the value in pulling for the new characters. So you're still not losing out on getting the newer characters, and the company's still not losing out on money for getting newer characters, but at the same time the player experience is good enough to where you don't have so much player dissatisfaction. Then the last thing that I think would make me quit, as someone who is a big fan of the franchise, is if they mess up the Fate collab, because it's something that they've been hyping up. They had a whole like animated, teaser for it so far. I'm surprised we didn't get any info on it during the live stream, but I mean, we'll see. Hopefully 3.3 live stream, they give us something, because we're getting close to the, the time that they said that the Fate collab would be happening, because it's Q3. So starting in July is going to be the Fate collab, which I believe is probably like 3.4, 3.5. I'm not looking at the calendar, directly to see that, but around that time, it would be like the earliest. So I definitely think that they need to give us info on that. And if they make something, either if they give like a ridiculous global passive to a Fate character, or if the Fate characters are just straight up bad, that's gonna leave a bad taste in my mouth, especially with something that they've hyped up so much. It's kind of a similar, thing as the old character buffs, with the way that it's been hyped up for some time. And if they just absolutely mess it up and don't make it fun, don't give us enough content for it, or just make the characters just straight up bad, then I think that's going to be, such a annoying thing to deal with, and would honestly make my faith in the game a lot lower. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people's faith in Star Rail has gone down over time, but that would just leave a bad taste in my mouth. Now, I know not everyone cares as much about the Fate collab, but someone who really does like Fate, I am really hoping that collab, hits. But if it doesn't, that's gonna suck, and we're just gonna have to deal with it, and that would leave just a bad taste in the mouth at the end of the day. So then the last thing I want to talk about here, which a lot of people, there's been discourse about this, and crazy discourse about this actually, will you be pulling for Castorice? Now I know there's going to be hate either way, right? No matter what I say. I will be pulling for Castorice. You guys will be getting a summon video next week for Castorice. Now, I was going to pull for Castorice regardless of the global passive, like even before that was like confirmed or anything, or even before people had dreams of it. I was like, all right, I'm going to pull for Castorice because she's cool. I do like her character. And we also got that animation preview where she has the dragon. I was like, that's cool, I'm going to pull for her. And honestly, the way I see it right now, because of Castorice's revive, if my account isn't good enough to clear all the content without that global passive activating, then that's just on me. So like me having Castorice is, I think on my account, isn't going to be as crazy of a deal. I am going to try to clear all the end game with, without having it activate, which I mean, everyone's going to be playing it differently. Some people, if you're more casual and you just use Castorice's revive, I don't think that's that big of a deal, respectfully. But I also am going to make the decision because of, and I know this feels like kind of like a middle ground, which I know people probably also aren't going to like, but I feel like that it's what I want to do for it. I'm not going to spend any extra money once Castorice drops to, pull on their banner. I have a monthly pass that's actually ending, I believe, right before 3.2 comes out. So whatever I have pull-wise, I'm going to pull for her and try to get her. If I get her, cool. If not, I'll have the patch to grind up for, so it shouldn't be too crazy. But I definitely am just going to test the waters at the end of the day, because I think that a lot of people are getting, tied up with the precedent and saying, like, this thing could happen, so I'm just going to quit now, instead of actually seeing what it's going to do in the game. Now, are a lot of the, like, fears that people have valid? Of course. But at the end of the day, I still find levels of enjoyment in the game, so I am still going to play it. But like I said, there are absolutely things that will make me want to quit. I do have that line I will draw. And if the game crosses that line, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And if I end up quitting HSR at a point, you guys will know. I'm not gonna hide my reasoning. I'm not gonna hide my opinion just because it's something that people don't agree with. If people are gonna have, comments, spreading hate, that's on them. But if you want to have a respectful discussion about it, I'm all ears for that too. I'd love to hear what you all think. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed and want to see more content from me, both HSR and Zenless Zone Zero, and hey, if HSR goes downhill, maybe some other games too, you never know. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. But with that, everyone, I will see you all next time.